Okay, welcome back to Drive Home Reviews is All Elite, YouTube's lowest watched wrestling review show, which actually last week we went up in viewership, so thank you to everybody who checked that out. Yeah, always appreciate it. I know I joke, but I do appreciate the views I get, so if you're one of them, thank you so much. So, gonna talk about the Dynamite from September 28th, 2022. I don't think it's going to take me that long. I always say that, and then I end up talking for 30 minutes. Because it just wasn't that interesting of a show, if I'm going to be honest. It was kind of a dud. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad show by any stretch of the imagination. It was just kind of there, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think, obviously, one of the ones that broke a couple hours before the show is that a lot of talent wasn't there due to the hurricane that was about to hit Florida. A lot of AEW talent is based out of Florida. So I know from the reports I'd heard, Tony Khan had said, kind of like they did with COVID, if you can't be here, then don't worry about it. Take care of yourself and take care of your family and your home first. And I think a number of them took him up on that. I know Cash Wheeler was one report that said that he was going to go and do a tour of Japan, and he left like 2 days early so that he could get out of the way of the hurricane, which was smart. So I assume that no, it's Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. Am I getting their names mixed up? I can never get their names right. But FTR. So I assume that they went there together. I would imagine. But anyway, so you had a lot of talent that wasn't there, and also I think a show like this was just kind of inevitable, because ever since All Out, they have just been All Out and the fallout from All Out. It has just been I think they've been riding a wave of not momentum, but adrenaline, of just damage control and trying to remind people that while things may look chaotic backstage, they're going hard in the ring. And the last couple episodes of Dynamite have just been exhausting with how much they've done and how good the matches were. They've really, really gone, no pun intended, all out in the wake of the, CM Punk Elite mess. And now, almost a month removed, that all has kind of died down for the time being. The only thing left there is the final fate of CM Punk and the Elite, and I guess they're still waiting on the impartial report on what exactly happened before final punishments or suspensions being lifted is kind of decided on. Of course, there's still backstage drama going on there with contracts and all of that, but in terms of the big thing, that's all kind of petered out. And to me, if I had to define this show in one word, I'd say tired. I think everyone working was just very tired, physically and emotionally. Taz even said it, the very first match, Bryan Danielson versus Magic Mike, or Daddy Magic there from the Jericho Appreciation Society, that, that Danielson fought the world title match last Wednesday, and, the group formerly known as, 2.0, had a match at Rampage, which was the same night, so they, and they've been wrestling pretty consistently, so I think everyone's just physically tired. I think, honestly, they're all just mentally exhausted. Everyone's just really burnt out. And I think this show is kind of a reflection of that. The show just seemed kind of tired. So there's not a lot to talk about, so we'll zip through this as quick as we can. Show opens with the Jericho Appreciation Society coming out, celebrating Jericho's, not only his 8th world title, but his 800th gimmick or nickname. I do have to say, the JAS looked great in these all-purple suits. And I did love some of the kind of the best part for me of this is that the whole time Jericho's doing his promo, and it was, Sammy Guevara and the former Ty Conte are just making out in the back, and Ty and JAS and Anna JAS are just eating pizza and feeding it to each other. So they're upstaging the whole time. It was pretty entertaining. I thought those three were having a good time, and it was pretty funny. But this is just another chapter in the evolution of Daniel Garcia. When is he going to leave the JAS? Is he going to leave the JAS? I have this bad feeling they may swerve us and he may stay with the JAS, but I'm hoping not. That's coming soon. Next week, they're supposed to do a tag match of Danielson and Garcia versus Jericho and Guevara. So, yeah, we'll see. But it feels like that is more to set up Jericho as the new Ring of Honor champion and the new big heel for their Ring of Honor brand. Again, hopefully that's going to get its own show here soon, and we'll see what happens there. But if I had to guess, I'd say they're kind of setting Garcia up to be the new young face. They're trying to make him the Hangman Adam Page of their new ROH. Which, not a bad idea, though he's still lacking a little something on the mic. And then they went into the first match, which, to me, I always prefer it when my wrestling show opens with wrestling. But then again, the whole gimmick of the JAS is that they're sports entertainers, and they open the show in a very sports entertainment way with a lavish promo. So it made sense for the characters, but I always like wrestling to start off, and then you can go to the promos. Then it was Danielson versus Daddy Magic. I mean, pretty flat. They tried. They did their best. Danielson won. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this match. It was just kind of there, and that's kind of the whole thing for the show. It was just kind of there. I really can't think of a lot of the other matches. I know we had another promo from Wheeler Yuta and MJF setting up their match for next week. And I gotta say, Wheeler Yuta has come a long way since going in with the Blackpool Combat Club and kind of getting the fire lit under him. He is over. The fans were behind him, which is interesting because the fans this night were just dead. Just a lot of the matches, it was just dead quiet until like the very end of the matches when things would start to heat up. But for the most of it, they were just very quiet. But they were really into Wheeler Yuta and MJF. So they've done a great job building Wheeler and kind of setting him up as a new young lion in the company. And I think that's what they're trying to do with Garcia. And I think it would be I think that'd be great for them and for the company as well. And of course, MJF is MJF. He's awesome on the mic, and he's their best heel. He's their best star at this point. So I mean, you can't really say much about him. The only thing I will say, actually, I'll hold off on that for a second. So then they did a couple of go nowhere matches. Then they did Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and of course the big gimmick there, or the hook there, I should say, is that apparently in New Japan, Juice Robinson holds 2 victories over Jon Moxley, which since he arrived in AEW, Moxley's been virtually untouchable. So that's a pretty big thing. But I know that AEW really depends on the fact that you are a wrestling fan, that you know about other wrestlers from outside of the company, like New Japan, NWA, Ring of Honor, and that you're going to know when these kind of big names show up. I have no knowledge of Juice Robinson, and I don't think a lot of the audience in attendance did either, because he came out and it was just kind of this, who? Which I get what they were trying to do. They like it when Moxley wrestles. They like it when he has a match, and they like it when he has competitive matches. And it was a competitive match. It was pretty good. And Juice Robinson, you can see why in New Japan, Juice Robinson and Jon Moxley is a big feud because he matches Moxley for that psycho intensity and was really beating the shit out of him for a while. So I get it. But for the audience, I felt like it started out really cold because nobody knew who this guy was. And, they saw the Bullet Club graphic, which carries a lot of weight, but I don't think anybody was like, oh, it's who, yeah. So I think if they wanted to bring this guy in, maybe they should have brought him in a week or two ago, had him fight a couple matches, just so people got an idea of who he was and that he was a legitimate threat to Moxley. I don't know. I don't know if that would have been good, if this was just a kind of a one and done kind of thing. But it was a decent match, and again, it heated up there towards the end. Of course, Moxley gets the victory, and Hangman Page comes out, and they do a face-off because Page won a Battle Royal on Rampage to be the number one contender for the title, and I think they're going to fight next week when they're in DC. And of course, MJF gets on the mic. He's up in the skybox again, and he says, maybe I'll cash in my poker chip next week. And so there's been some speculation and a lot of, again, if there's something I would clear up if I was AEW, it's, again, clarity about these gimmicks and the rules and stipulations, because I was under the impression that chip granted him a match at the pay-per-view or Dynamite that he wanted, but it sounds more like they're treating it like the Money in the Bank briefcase where he can cash it in whenever he wants. And the announcers were kind of telling that story too, and if that's what they're going with, I have to tell you guys, I'm not a fan. I do not like the Money in the Bank gimmick. I don't mind the idea of, here's a ladder match for the number one contender, and you can have that at any pay-per-view or any television event you want. I don't mind that, but I hate the cash-in because it never works. It gets an initial pop, but in my experience, and admittedly I haven't watched WWE in a long time, it doesn't do much for solidifying the new champion because they didn't win it fair. They basically, even when the faces do it, they basically cheat to win. And it's so you get an initial pop, but then there's nothing, like, they didn't earn it. There was no great match. There was no, even when there's cheating involved. The only guy I can think that it worked for was the first one, was Edge, because he was the first one to do it, so it was a fresh new idea, and that fit that ultimate opportunist gimmick that he had going on. But other than that, I just think back to all the people who won that Money in the Bank and then cashed it in such a way, I don't think it did much for any of them or their subsequent title reigns. So I don't like, if they're just using it as a threat that MJF is going to say, oh, maybe I'll do it today, and then he doesn't, okay, fine, I don't mind that. But if he actually does, I think that is a huge disservice to him. He needs a coronation, a proper coronation at a pay-per-view or a well-publicized match. It needs to be a real coming out party for him. And teasing that they're going to do this Money in the Bank thing, I think it's a bad idea. So again, if they're just doing it as a tease, okay, fine. But if you're actually being serious, I think that's a bad call. So anyway, and then Wheeler Yuta kind of surprised MJF behind in the skybox and beat the shit out of him, which was pretty good. That was so they're doing a nice job building up this little rivalry between them. So then last week the big surprise was the former Paige, now Saraya, nobody knows how to pronounce her name, comes down, and in the interim between last week and this week, it was revealed that she's not medically cleared to wrestle. Her neck is still bad. So it begs the question of what is she going to do there? And the answer is no one knows. She came out, she hits the pop, and she goes off on this very weak promo about I'm the new face of the revolution, and she brings out the face women's division for AEW, which was Toni Storm and 3 women that I could not identify until the announcers told me, because they appear mostly on Dark. you know, it was this segment that I think they were hoping was going to, re-energize the women's division and, give it a shot in the arm. And I think it just highlighted how weak it is. And I don't think it landed. And I don't know, but I have a suspicion that Paige Saraya, that she works better with a script. I know one of the big selling points of AEW, and one of the things I love about AEW, is there are no scripted promos, and the guys who are good in the mic are just allowed to go and do what they want to do and say what they want to say, though that has proven to be problematic. But some people are just not that good at improv. They need the script to follow. And I think she may be one of them. And especially when a few minutes later, Britt Baker and the heel AEW women's division came out, and Britt just spanked Paige on the mic. It was brutal. Like, Paige just could not. I'm going to keep calling her Paige, I'm sorry. But I'm not going to get sued. So, yeah, Britt just frickin' tore her up on that mic. And, whew, yeah. So I think they were hoping that this segment was going to be this big, shot in the arm, but I don't think it did that at all. And I'm a little concerned at this point with what they're going to do with her. And then it was Toni Storm versus Serena Deeb. Again, a decent match. I really like Serena Deeb. I said it last week that she's kind of what would happen if you mixed Dean Malenko and Chris Canyon's DNA. And I just think she's a really exciting, innovative wrestler, and I like a lot of her stuff. The match was just kind of there. I mean, yeah, it was again flat, just there. I mean, Toni Storm wins, though. I'm not going to get off on every rant I want to get off on here. I've already talked about this interim title thing and my problems with it, but anyway. And then it was main event time. So then it was Chris Jericho versus former ROH champion Bandito. So again, we have someone that that a lot of AEW fans may not be familiar with. I know I was not incredibly familiar with Bandito. I'd caught a couple of his matches and thought he was decent, but I didn't know much about him. So again, I think the fans were a little chilly on this match. They were just kind of sitting there for a while. And now Bandito and Jericho won them over, and they won me over because I was kind of half in and out of it there at the beginning, and then they really picked up the pace. Some great moves from Bandito. This moonsault fall-away slam from the top rope that he did and that Jericho took, and it was pretty awesome. So they won me over, and they did a good job. I like that they're doing this whole thing with Jericho where he has no honor. It's Ring of Honor, and he has no honor. And even though he didn't low blow him, he pulled Bandito's mask down over his eyes so he couldn't see, so that he could beat him. So I like that. I like what they're doing there, because obviously whoever's going to stand up for Ring of Honor and win that title back with honor, that's going to be a huge thing for them. So I thought the match was good. It was entertaining, nice to see something from somebody new, and I hope that they keep Bandito around for whenever they relaunch Ring of Honor, whenever that's going to happen. And then the night kind of ends with Jericho saying he's going to destroy everything Ring of Honor meant. It's now Ring of Jericho, and he's going to beat up every Ring of Honor star, every Ring of Honor announcer, and every Ring of Honor ring announcer. And he gives the Judas effect to this to the guy, I don't know his name, who does the Ring of Honor ring entrances. And that's how you went off the air with Jericho, being the ultimate heel, which very few people do it better than him. So yeah, that was Dynamite. Not much else to really report. Nothing really interesting, or again, I think just a combination of people being gone, I think just coming down off the adrenaline rush that has been the last month of AEW. And I think they're also trying to clear the table and set up their next batch of storylines, because they've wrapped up a bunch of storylines over the last couple of weeks. And, of course, now without a couple major players, I think a lot of those storylines are having to be rewritten on the fly. So I think this was meant as kind of a palate cleanser. You know, that batch of stories is done. We're doing this batch of stories now, and we're setting up for all of that. So, again, not a bad episode, but if I had to grade it, I would say it was maybe a C+ episode. And again, the wrestling wasn't bad. It was just tired, flat, and just felt like everybody could use a vacation, which, again, in this business, you don't get. So I think they did the best they could. They fought hard, but I think mental and physical fatigue just kind of taking its toll. So next week, it sounds like we're going to have a pretty big and pretty loaded card again. So I have hope that next week's Dynamite will be a little bit stronger. And even so, you know, you're doing a weekly TV show every week, without break. There's going to be a couple duds in there. And this one, while not a dud, it just wasn't much worth it. So, yeah, so there it is. That's my review for Dynamite last night. So let me know what you think. So anyway, that's it. It's kind of a lackluster ending to a lackluster review, but there it is. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for riding along with me. And I'm still working on a catchphrase to sign off on this. So I'll just stick with my old one until then. So until next time, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies. Or at the arena. I don't know.